Janine Garofalo.
Beware of dogma. This is Free Thought Radio.
Welcome back to Free Thought Radio. I'm Dan Barker.
What happens at the end of life, and we don't mean after death, but what happens when you have no choice about how you die? Our guest today will give us some options.
Brian Ruder is president of the board of Final Exit. He's worked in management and international payment processing, marketing, computer security, business development. He worked for Visa for 17 years in systems and system marketing. Before that, he was an analyst for the CIA, and he has taught college-level math, statistics, and business.
Very interesting resume. And Brian Ruder, who's an FFRF member as well, volunteered for the National Suicide Crisis Line in Portland and Compassion and Choices before joining Final Exit Network in 2015. He joined that board in August of 2017 and became president of the board in 2019.
So before we bring Brian Ruder on, let's listen to an introductory video produced by Final Exit.
For over 20 years, Final Exit Network's mission has been to educate individuals who meet our criteria on practical, peaceful ways to end their life, offer them our compassionate presence when they do so, and defend their right to choose.
Over time, we hope to normalize choice in dying so that it's not such a difficult path for those who want that choice.
We want more people to know about their options and the power they have at a time that, too often, is surrounded by doubt, silence, and fear.
Our Exit Guide program provides those who meet our criteria with education on a safe, comfortable method of ending their own life and companionship at the time of your exit, if that's what you desire.
The Exit Guide program serves competent adults faced with intractable suffering from medical conditions that seriously impair their quality of life.
So, as I said, we are very pleased to have with us today Brian Ruder, the president of the board of Final Exit. And welcome to Free Thought Radio, Brian.
Thank you very much for having me.
And thank you for being a member of the Freedom from Religion Foundation.
I think what you do is wonderful, and I may at some point want to volunteer to do more in your organization too.
Well, thank you. So I think it helps to know a little bit more about your background. You were telling us before the program began about how you didn't used to have these same views and perhaps came into an awareness because of a family tragedy.
Yes, so I was born a devout Catholic in Western Kansas in a small town. I went to an all-boys Catholic military high school, an all-boys Catholic college on a football scholarship. And so the question is, how do I get from that place where I thought that taking your own life was a mortal sin and would take you to hell to a place where I am sitting with people as they die peacefully using our method of our inert gas method? The answer is that I had a very interesting life working for the CIA and Visa. And shortly after I left, my son was in an accident, a very freak accident at 18, and became a quadriplegic. And my wife and I took care of him for 15 years, and that had a profound effect on my view of life. And I really decided after we were able to leave and have him have his own attendance, I really thought I wanted to do something meaningful. So I did try the suicide crisis line. I liked doing some of that, but it didn't give me the interaction with people that I really wanted. And so I worked with Compassion and Choices before they got rid of their Exit Guide program. And then I found Final Exit, which had, for me, everything I was looking for, a set of really wonderful, intelligent, compassionate people who wanted to do something which was important to me, which is to give people a choice at the end of life on a legal, safe, peaceful way to end their life if they so chose. So that's how I got where I am. And it's been an interesting journey that has changed my life, transformed me. I am no longer afraid of dying or death. And so I've gained much more from my volunteer activity than I actually put into it.
Sounds very compassionate. I'm looking at your website, and your mission is to educate qualified individuals in practical, peaceful ways to end their lives, a compassionate bedside presence, and defend their right to choose. And the vision is that any competent person unbearably suffering an intractable medical condition has the option to die legally and peacefully. So this isn't just for the terminally ill, but it's somebody with an intractable condition. How do you explain that?
So we have the way our process works, people send us a letter saying they want to use our services. They send us medical records to support that. And we have a medical review group that looks at these things. And the categories that we have for accepting people are, the intractable medical issues, chronic pain, dementia, and then we have something called a constellation of issues, which is sort of our completed life category. And we don't require that people be terminal. So we let the people on our medical review committee decide whether or not the medical issues that the people have or the pain that they have is something that we believe is reasonable in the sense that they really do not have something that can be corrected or medically addressed. And so they make a decision as to whether or not these are intractable and whether or not they meet our criteria.
So I noticed that the principles say a mentally competent person. So this is kind of how you shy away from somebody who's just having a bad moment and wants to commit suicide, right?
I would guess that everybody in our program would like to be able to address the mental issue, but it is such a wide open issue at this point that we just don't know how to address it. As you may know, Canada, who passed their laws in 2016, has started trying to allow people with mental issues to have a medical aid in dying death. It's very, very difficult to determine exactly, how a person is mentally okay to make a decision, but not mentally okay enough that they want to die. So we just shied away from it because we can't figure out how to deal with it.
Some of us might be worried that, we're mentally okay now, but what happens if there's approaching dementia that you think might impair your ability in the future? What do you do about that?
Well, so 10 to 15% of the people that die with us have early stage dementia, and to use our service, they have to die before they lose competency. We also started an advanced directive for dementia, which is a rider to your normal advanced directive that says that after I lose competency, if I decide that I don't want to eat anymore, I authorize my surrogate to have my caregiver stop feeding me so that I can die naturally by not eating and drinking. But the problem with that, of course, is that it may be years after you lose competency before you get to that point that you don't want to eat. So it could be years. So in our case, we do have the advanced directive, and there are lots of them out there for dementia, but it's still many years in memory care. And people hate to hear this, but I had a sister who was in memory care, and today memory care can cost anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000 a month. So the people who use our services, the vast majority decide that they want to die before they lose competency.
Yeah, and also many, of course, people who are parents want to leave a legacy for their children. They don't want to see it all burned up when they not even in their right mind, and may be very embarrassed by how they may act. They may be suffering greatly. So you're giving some advice for what someone in the early stages of dementia can do to take control of their death. Right.
And Anna, you just hit on something that I'm very, very concerned about. Our social acceptability of choosing to die is really, really way out of whack, I think. Very much like our understanding or our belief in religion. People in this country believe that anybody who hastens their death is either mentally unstable or a coward, and so.
Or a sinner.
Or a sinner, yeah.
Or a sinner, yes, exactly. And as a result, people feel uncomfortable. But what you just said is what I believe is happening. I think that more and more people don't want to be a burden, don't want to be an economic drain on their children, and don't want their children to have to see them in these various states of decline. So,
yeah, what I should say also is it's because they don't want to lose this quality of life. They want to end it before they lose their quality of life.
Right, exactly.
So it's not just some financial calculation, but,
Right, it's always a combination of all these things. All of us would spend our energy and money to take care of our parents, because we love them. But there's an interesting interaction where I, as the father, and with my son, I don't want him to have to worry about it. And so it may be financial, it may be emotional, it may be physical, but all of them put together say that I would rather hasten my death than to move into this place where I lose control or I lose autonomy.
Well, we're talking with the president of the board of Final Exit, Brian Ruder, and we have so many more questions for you, Brian, but especially what help Final Exit can actually give you, because I know you don't provide the means for self-deliverance, and you do not assist in that. So what help can people get from Final Exit? I'm Annie Laurie Gaylor.
I'm Dan Barker. We're listening to Ravel's Piano Concerto for the Left Hand. We'll be right back with more Free Thought Radio.
Hi, I'm Don Ardell, a life member of FFRF and promoter of Real Wellness Lifestyles. I'm no longer willing to say, "In God I trust, so help me God, God bless America," or pretend America is more under a God than any other nation. Join the resistance to Christian nationalism and politicians more attentive to what they think God wants than the needs of their constituents. Let's make separation of church and state a reality and turn back the drift to theocracy. Support FFRF. Our freedom really does depend on freethinkers.
Margaret Sanger's motto was, "No gods, no masters." This is Free Thought Radio.
We're back with our final segment. I'm Annie Laurie Gaylor.
And I'm Dan Barker. And speaking of final segments, we're continuing our conversation with Brian Ruder, who's the president of the board of Final Exit Network.
And Brian, Final Exit has had a lot of controversy, doesn't it? I mean, we don't see legislators coming up with bills, drafts to help Final Exit, do we?
No, we don't. The problems we had were in the early days where we were actually providing services to people without coordinating with their families, and the families protested. We haven't had any real issues in the last number of years, other than in Minnesota, where they're trying to do something against the First Amendment. But you're absolutely right. What we do is legal and safe and peaceful, but it's not encoded in the legislation like the medical aid and dying laws are. In every state in the United States, it's legal to end your life if you so choose. It's just illegal for people to help or assist you. So there are issues around clarity for that particular reason.
Yeah, but it may not be easy for people to end their lives, and that's why Final Exit exists, correct? That you're kind of a support group?
Right. So just very quickly, what we do if a person contacts us, our coordinators will tell you about all the legal ways that you have to end your life on your own terms, which includes going to Switzerland, voluntary stopping eating and drinking, stopping medical services, or using our method, which is inert gas. We use a inert gas because it's the only legal, safe thing that you can buy on the market. Every other thing requires subscriptions. What happens if a person contacts us and they qualify, we give them an equipment list of all the things that they need to die using inert gas. And in this particular case, it's nitrogen, which is 78% of what you're breathing now. And so we have guides that will come to your home and educate you on how to assemble all these things and use them. And then if you want us to, we will come back and be with you at the time you die. The inert gas method is very quick and very efficient. A person it's not suffocating. It's because we're breathing 78% nitrogen. When you do start breathing the nitrogen, it feels natural. You go unconscious in about 45 to 60 seconds, and you die within 10 to 15 minutes. So
Wow.
it's 100% effective. So we've been doing this for 20 years, and it's not elegant, but it's very effective, and it's legal and safe.
We know someone who did that actually in our organization.
Well, also, we knew Betty Rollin, who you probably knew. She wrote on these issues, the NBC correspondent, who chose in her late 80s, had a constellation of symptoms, I think is the way you'd put it, and went to Switzerland. So she may have visited your website. So I'm amazed, though, that you're saying that you have such a large group of volunteers that somebody could come and visit somebody. Do you really have that many people in every state?
We have about 50 to 60 volunteers, and we do a training every other year. But we bring two people to a person's home, and we do an education visit with two people. And then if the person or the client wants us to come back, we bring two people back to their home. So we do all this in their home. All of our services are free, and you don't have to be a member to use them. So we're very fortunate that we have a lot of people who've given us money that allow us to do this. And as I always tell people, I think that's because they understand it's very important to have a choice around dying.
You were telling us during the break that that Final Exit really lives on bequests because people are very grateful for what you do.
Yes. And in the last couple of years, we've gotten very large, $750,000. I mean, we've gotten large bequests from people, some of whom we don't have any idea how they know about us. They just think that what we do is important, and they want to make sure that we're able to provide our services in the indefinite future.
Looking at your webpage, I see that one of the things you do is that you support research for safe, inexpensive medications, but that you do not provide the means for self-deliverance, and that you do not assist in self-deliverance. Some states are allowing medication deaths, but you say you're not involved in any of that then.
I live in Oregon, which is the first state that had medical aid in dying 25 years ago. We educate people on the use. We have partners in all the states to help people actually use the medical aid in dying laws. We do not do that specifically. We just tell them where they can go to get all the information.
You're offering a different option because those have very, very tight restrictions and everything's done through physicians,
right.
Correct?
Exactly. And so our method is we don't require that a person is terminal, but we do require that they're able to acquire all of the equipment, in particular the nitrogen and the regulator, and that they're able to assemble it and use it themselves because we can't help them in any way physically.
So earlier you said that there was controversy in the early days because some family members has objected. Are you trying to involve family members now when someone contacts you?
We require it, in fact. Anybody who wants to use our services has to agree that we can talk to their family and make sure that even if they don't think that this is a good idea, that they at least accept the fact that it's the person's choice to do this. So it's another restriction that we have, which is that if a person wants to die with us using our service, they have to allow us to be able to talk to their family to make sure that they are okay with what's going on. Because in the early days, these people would call the police and say, we know that this person would have never done this. These people must have forced him. They must have encouraged him. They must have provided the means. And so we made changes in our program that we now require that the family be involved, or at least that they understand what's going on and that they accept that it's that person's choice.
We saw in the New York Times in January that one of your principal founders, Derek Humphrey, just died at the age of 94.
Yes.
What is the history of Final Exit Network?
So Final Exit Network was formed in 2004 when two organizations merged to form Compassion and Choices. Derek was the founder of the Hemlock Society in 1980, and they had one time over 50 chapters and over 40,000 members across the country and had quite a bit of money. And this other organization was looking for their money. So they formed Compassion and Choices, and Compassion and Choices decided they wanted to do advocacy for legislation, and that having a group that was out supporting people dying was not a good thing for them. So they said, we're not going to continue that. Derek Humphrey and Faye Gersh and a number of other people formed Final Exit Network in 2004, right after that merger.
So your Final Exit Network is a network. You have 6 other groups. What are those other groups besides Compassionate Choices?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure, Dan.
I think Dan read somewhere that you partner with 6 other groups.
So we partner with End of Life California, End of Life Washington, and a number of other organizations. Our goal is to we're all in the same business, trying to help people who are ready to die, whether it's using medical aid and dying or otherwise, in making sure that they have all the information they need to die peacefully and to die on their own terms.
So looking at your website, finalexitnetwork.org, you have you put up your favorite 15 conversation starting favorites, and these are referrals for books, newspaper articles, actually a lot of movies too, or documentaries. So briefly, what can people find there?
We have a minute left.
So the main thing that we really espouse is that people should talk to their families about death and dying and how they feel, and it's difficult for people, and so we put this together as a way for people to say, let's use this to start a conversation about how we want to die. So that's what that is all about.
Well, so that people can find a number of good resources there on your website. So a half a minute left, parting words for Final Exit, Brian.
Well, I'd just like to say, first of all, thank you for inviting me. And we believe in choice. We think everybody should be educated regardless of how they decide to die. They should know what their legal, safe options are. And so, again, thank you for inviting me. This has been really wonderful.
Well, it seems like a wonderful service. So thank you, Brian.
Brian Ruder is on the board, the president of the board of Final Exit Network.
And that's our show for today. If you're a member of FFRF like Brian is, thank you. If not, please join us. You can also, if you don't feel you know enough about us, ask for information at ffrf.org. Please become part of our organization working for state-church separation and reason to prevail.
We want to say hello to listeners in Philadelphia to WOOM and in Bryn Mawr to WZML. In Madison, Wisconsin, there's 2 stations, WMUU and WIDE. In Janesville, Wisconsin, WADR. There's 2 stations in Texas. In College Station, there's KEOS, and in San Marcos, there's KZSM. In Eugene, Oregon, KEPW. In Silver City, New Mexico, GMCR. In Bellows Falls, Vermont, WOOL, Black Sheep Radio. I love that name of that show, WOOL. Over in Kingston, Rhode Island, WRIU. And in Ithaca and Watkins Glen, New York, WRFI. And hello to you podcast listeners. If you're listening on the podcast, give us a thumbs up on your provider and tell your friends and family to learn more about Free Thought Radio at ffrf.org/radio.
So please tune in next week for more rational radio.